Broadway, the hip hooray and ballyhoo, the lullaby of Broadway, the rumble of the subway train. Tooting Hammersmith Ealing, we've got 3 Broadways. America's only got 1. We don't crow about it. I'm jittery, I know I am. You wait 40 years for a new route in your life, and 2 come along at once. North last train to Leytonstone. Mind the doors, please, mind the doors. This is the Norman Victor Memorial Journey. Champagne and party poppers are compulsory on this Central Line train. Right then. 23 more open closes. In its goodbye tunnel vision, allow whiskey, snoozers and marble cake. People say, what you going to do with yourself, Norm? You're LT through and through. Don't worry about me. 10 days' time, I'll have plenty to occupy me, won't I? Had to be this line for me. I was drawn to it. Oh, I toyed with some of the others, but each line's got its own character, you know. Don't let anybody tell you different. Metropolitan, for instance. Man's line. It was there right from the off. Tanita says when they cut me open on the slab, me veins will flop out in the shape of the tube map. I said, you've got a right charming little imagination there, girl. I reckon she's not far wrong, mine. I'll blame me mum. Norman, she used to say life's a journey. Just make sure you look where you're going. Not as easy as that, though, is it, eh? I was 4 when the war broke out. When Dad got called up, Mum's hair turned white overnight. They just moved into their house. Everything in boxes, new life beckoning, and there he was, gone. She didn't know she was going to cope with us, me and little Arthur, on her own. She drove a taxi. Woman who hardly dared step outside without a man. Took fares, ferried people across the smoke. Doing my bit, she used to say. Transformed her, that war. All I remember is praying for bombs. Terrible, innit? Because then I knew she'd come back, gather us both up and whisk us underground. Us and half London jostling for places on those dusty, ghostly platforms. A magic land of stairs and signs and never-ending tunnels. The best den a kid ever had. And down there we felt safe. Hugged by our mum while she told us stories of our heroic dad. And up above, the distant booms. Set clear of the demon doors. Central Line train to Leytonstone. Eastward home, me beauties. Me dad said, you'll never make a train driver as long as you got a hole in your khyber. And he put me down as a carpenter's apprentice. Trying to make me in his own image, you see. I lasted a week. Just wasn't in me. Even now, a block of wood and a bag of nails brings me out in a cold sweat. War killed him, you see, inside. I always wondered what he'd been like before that. He must have had something. He tried to stop me joining. I paid him no heed. I was going to get back into those tunnels any which way I could. By the time I was 18, I'd got myself a place in the London Transport Training School. Desperate to learn the secrets about the world underground I was. And always the thought, make it through and you'd be a guard. And then, one day, could it be possible? A driver. Training school, boot camp more like. Run like an army barracks it was. Ex-army officers trying to run us civvies like they'd run their soldiers. First day, sent to Chiswick Bus Works. It was all one company then, you see, buses and trains. This big red bus full of us, bright-eyed and terrified, queuing up for our uniforms like we'd got the call. Terrible uniforms. Not as bad as these, mine, but don't get me going on that. Dark blue serge, Griffin logos every flipping where. But I didn't care. I was like a kid in a sweet shop, getting £4 a week more than I'd ever got before to do something I'd have paid them for. They try to knock it into you and knock it out the other side at that school. Worth it for the evening, though. Drinks and chats and West London girls, dancers, back row at the pictures, and if you're feeling really sure, black cab home. I didn't exactly sow me wild oats, but, well, I reckon there was enough activity for a good bowl of porridge. Oh, hello, look at this one. Doesn't know whether he's coming or going. All you got to do is put both feet on the train and the rest of your body will follow. Good lad. There. That wasn't so difficult, was it? The punters have got dafter. But definitely. No question in my mind. And they expect so much more now as well. If I had my way, I'd have a proper passenger charter where they'd have to promise a certain level of respect and behaviour. It's a two-way street, you see. In the end, I strolled out of that school like I was cock of the walk. London knew we were out that night, I can tell you. I can still see Billy Haynes in the middle of Cambridge Circus, his hands in the air, waving his papers, bringing the traffic to a standstill and shouting, "I'm going to be a bleeding driver!" Got home around 2. Lounge light still on. Your dad sat under the standard lamp, staring into space. I tiptoed beerily in, crept up to him, shoved the paper under his nose and says, "Looks like my jack seal needs stitching up, eh, old fella?" He looked at me with empty eyes and said, "Your mother's been killed by a taxi." White City, eh? BBC. Feet murring on air was a man, voice like honey. "Please mind the gap between the platform and the train, ladies and gentlemen. It's not a design fault, we just want to keep you all on your toes." Here we go then. Into the darkness. It was windy when we buried her. She'd been rushing around for something or other, crossed on the corner, didn't see it come. Taxis were the doing and the undoing for my old mum. He shrunk, like he'd had the life sucked out of him. I never knew she meant so much to him. But as he stood sobbing by the graveside, I realised he'd never considered her not being there. She knew I'd got my papers, knew I'd passed. She was looking on. Still is. All right, Mum? So, I lost me mum, but I gained something else. I can't tell you what it was like in them days. You walked in and suddenly you were part of something. A family, a laughing, bickering, sprawling, extended family. Not anymore. Everybody knew everybody else back then, but that's all gone. Now it's just a business. Notting Hill. Don't get me started on Notting Hill, right? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Captain Beckton, your pilot for this afternoon. Just waiting for the signal from air traffic control, and we will be heading due east at an altitude of approximately 2 foot. After my mum went, my dad started having a pop. "You're going to piddle around forever," he'd say. Oh, I caught it, but none of them seemed to hit the mark. It was always in the background there was Alice. She lived next door and we both knew. Never said anything. Eyes met and then avoided, usual thing. But it was sort of predestined. So in the end I got up courage and asked her to a dance. Nobody dances anymore, do they? Just throw themselves about. We went out together and we ticked along okay. It wasn't a blinding passion, but then we didn't expect it to be. I proposed down by the canal. We'd done the last of the sherbet lemons and there was a lull in the conversation. Seemed the right thing to say at the time. The station manager gave me Sunday so I'd get the money together. Double time. I'll never forget him for that, old Arnold. At the ceremony, the vicar asked her if she was going to love, honour and obey. Nobody said anything about obeying, she said, and glared at me as if I'd added it in deliberately. Eventually, our mouth said I do, but our eyes weren't talking in tandem. Ceremony was packed. We had 2 drivers and 3 guards as ushers, and they still couldn't get the church doors to close on time. Southend, bank holiday honeymoon. After the event, she lay there and said, "I was banking on you having had more practice than that." And I can't complain, not really. I knew what I was letting myself in for. Just what you did in them days. Eventually, I must admit, the sex thing became a bit of a problem. I mean, I'm only human. Not ashamed to say, I have my urges. But as time ticked on, Alice pulled down the shutter further and further. "You had your chance," she'd say. There was never any question of kids. I needed consistent access for that. And anyway, I'd seen her face in the supermarket. If looks could have killed, East London would have been a hotbed of unexplained toddler mortality. Jeremy arrived in '69, the day after Neil Armstrong had turned things upside down. I mean, we all knew people like that, but you didn't want to have to work with them. He was the first on the line, first on the system. They hadn't known what to do with him at the school. You couldn't put him down like water off a duck's back. First duty on, he came in with a pink feather boa and said he was going to bring a bit of style to the central line if it killed him. It was nearly an all-out strike. It came that close, I'm not kidding you. We had a meeting. We all refused to work with him. What if we get stuck down a tunnel, I said. Jeremy just smiled and said, my charisma will light up the gloom. Eventually Arnold hauled me in. He said, listen, lad, I don't like it any more than you do, but somebody's got to do it. Oh, cheers, Arnold, I said. First day as a pair, we got wolf whistled getting onto the train. He just waved back at him. I was ready to kill. Told Alice. Watching Parky we were. They've only gonna lump me with a ginger guard, I said. She just looked at me and said, that explains a lot.